This story is titled, My Parents Forgot to Invite Me to the Family Reunion, so I showed up with a surprise announcement. Hey everyone, how's it going? I need to vent a bit because this whole thing has been eating me alive. I'm 28 female, the youngest of 3 siblings, and honestly, it feels like I've been the odd one out since birth. Let me paint the picture for you. Me being the odd one out in my family doesn't mean in an edgy, rebellious way, like I was trying to be different on purpose. It's just that my brother and sister always seemed to fit this mold of what a successful kid should look like. They had the steady jobs, the impressive resumes, the suburban dream lives with perfect little families. Meanwhile, I've taken a different path. I mean the kind that doesn't land on glossy Christmas cards or get bragged about at family dinners. My brother, Ryan, 35 male, and works as a marketing executive. He's got one of those jobs where nobody really understands what he does, but they all assume it's important because he's always on Zoom calls and talking strategy. He married his college sweetheart, and now they've got 2 adorable kids and a house straight out of a home renovation show. Then there's my sister, Emily, 32 female, an engineer, and married to an equally successful guy who might as well be an engineer too, based on how analytical and detail-oriented he is. They're the kind of people who host dinner parties with matching dinnerware and themed desserts. And then there's me. I left my corporate job 2 years ago to start freelancing as a graphic designer. It's nothing flashy. I design logos, branding materials, and digital assets for small businesses. It's not the kind of thing that will make me rich, but I love it. It's enough to pay the bills and keep me happy, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the point of life. I live with my boyfriend of 5 years, Ethan, in a small rented house. We're not rolling in money, but we're comfortable and content. The problem is my family doesn't see it that way. For them, life is about stability, tradition, and climbing the corporate ladder. My choices don't fit that narrative, so they don't really know what to do with me. It's not like they're outright mean about it. They're too polite for that. But there's always this undercurrent of judgment. Little comments like, oh, that's nice, but don't you miss having a steady paycheck? Or, if you went back to a 9-to-5, you'd have more security. They act like my life is some temporary phase I'll grow out of when I realize how hard the real world is. I've spent years brushing off the subtle digs and trying not to let it bother me. For the most part, I've been able to shrug it off because I know they just don't get it. And honestly, I didn't realize how much it had been building up until a few weeks ago, when I found out just how invisible I am to them. It all started on a regular Tuesday night. I was scrolling through Instagram, half watching a show in the background, when I saw my cousin Chloe's story. It was one of those big family gatherings we do a couple of times a year. Everyone crammed into someone's house, laughing, eating, and catching up. My brother and sister were there, of course, along with their spouses, my aunts and uncles, and all my cousins. It looked like the kind of chaotic fun that makes you nostalgic even while it's happening. But something was missing. Or rather, someone. I wasn't tagged. I wasn't there. And as far as I could tell, I hadn't even been invited. At first, I thought maybe I'd missed the memo. We have a family group chat that's always buzzing with plans and updates, so maybe the invite got buried in the endless stream of messages. I texted Ryan and Emily to check. Ryan usually responds right away, and Emily, while slower, never ignores me completely. But this time, nothing. Hours passed, and neither of them replied. That sinking feeling started creeping in. The one where you start to realize something isn't quite right, but don't want to admit it yet. The next day, I decided to go straight to the source. I called my mom, Grace. I tried to keep it casual, asking how things were and whether there'd been any family gatherings recently. There was a pause, a long one. Then she said, "Oh, you mean the reunion? We didn't think you'd want to come, sweetheart. You're always so busy with your little freelancing." Her tone was overly casual, but I could hear the clinking of dishes and muffled voices in the background, familiar sounds of my family's gatherings that usually stretched over a weekend. It felt like someone had flipped a switch in my brain. Busy? I wasn't too busy to spend time with my family, and even if I was, isn't that my decision to make? Why didn't they at least ask me? I pressed her on it, trying to understand why they'd assumed I wouldn't want to be there. Her tone shifted to something lighter, like she was trying to downplay the whole thing. "We just didn't want to bother you," she said. "Besides, you've missed a few events before, so we figured it was no big deal." The excuse was so silly. This wasn't about missing a random dinner or skipping a holiday because of work. This was a full-blown family reunion, something I would have moved mountains to be part of, but they didn't even think to include me. After that call, I sat in my kitchen for what felt like forever, replaying the conversation in my head. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened, There were plenty of holidays where plans seemed to revolve around Ryan and Emily's families, while I got tacked on as an afterthought. I'd always told myself it wasn't intentional, that it was just easier for them to focus on the ones with kids or more traditional lives. But now it was clear. This wasn't about convenience. It was deliberate. The more I thought about it, the more I started connecting dots. It wasn't like they forgot about me in the chaos of planning. No, this was intentional. They'd decided I didn't belong there, at least not enough to make an effort to include me. And honestly, that stung more than I wanted to admit. I tried to distract myself by throwing myself into work, but every time I scrolled through social media, I'd see another photo or video from the reunion. It was like a highlight reel of everything I'd missed, all because someone decided I wouldn't fit in. It wasn't just about the reunion anymore. This was about years of feeling like an afterthought, years of being left out. And for what? Because I didn't follow the same cookie-cutter path as Ryan and Emily? Because I chose happiness over a high-paying job I hated? It was frustrating because I wasn't looking for a medal or constant validation. I just wanted to be treated like I mattered. I vented to Ethan about it, hoping he'd tell me I was overreacting. Instead, he got angrier than I'd ever seen him. "This isn't okay," he said, pacing around the living room. "You deserve better than this." He even offered to call my mom himself, which made me laugh. Partly because of how sweet it was, and partly because I knew it wouldn't make a difference. My family had made up their minds about where I stood, and nothing was going to change that overnight. Still, Ethan's support is making me feel something I haven't felt in days. Like I actually have a choice. He keeps saying I should just show up. If they didn't invite you, fine. But that doesn't mean you can't remind them you're part of this family, he says. It's tempting, I won't lie. The idea of walking in unannounced, making them confront me face to face has a certain appeal. But then again, what if I just make things worse? What if it only confirms their assumptions about me? That I'm too sensitive or making it about myself? On the other hand, why should I let them erase me? A part of me feels like showing up isn't about revenge, but about standing my ground. About saying, I'm here, and I'm not going to disappear quietly. And if I do decide to show up, I have a reason that feels bigger than the drama. Ethan and I got engaged a few weeks ago. We haven't told anyone yet because I've been waiting for the right moment to share it in person with my family. But now, it feels like that right moment isn't going to come unless I make it happen. But here's the thing. What if showing up isn't the answer? I mean, if they want to exclude me, maybe I should let them. Maybe that's the only way to keep my sanity intact. The reunion is still going on for a few more days, so it's not like I've missed my chance to crash it. I still have time to decide. So now I'm stuck. Do I go and risk the awkwardness and tension just to claim my space? Or do I stay home and let them wonder why I didn't show up? Like they've forced me to wonder why I wasn't invited in the first place? Honestly, I don't know what to do. What would you do? Update 1. Hi again. I came with an update since most of you were asking for a follow-up. Alright, so here's what I did. After spending way too much time pacing around my kitchen and debating whether to crash the reunion or let it go, I finally decided I'm doing it. Call it bravery, call it stubbornness, but I'm not sitting this one out. If they didn't want me there, they'll have to deal with me showing up anyway. And honestly, it's not about causing a scene or proving a point. It's about reminding myself that I have every right to be there. I started planning my entrance like I was gearing up for a heist. I baked a batch of cookies, something simple but thoughtful, so it'd look like I'd always intended to come. Ethan offered to come with me for backup, but I told him I needed to do this alone. If things went south, he'd be a phone call away. The drive to my parents' house felt longer than it actually was. I'd gone over the plan 100 times in my head. Walk in, act natural, hand over the cookies, and pretend like I had every reason to be there. Simple, right? But as I got closer, doubts started creeping in. What if they made a scene? What if they told me to leave? Worse, what if they didn't acknowledge me at all? When I finally pulled up, I could see them through the windows milling around, chatting, and laughing like it was the event of the year. I grabbed the box of cookies from the passenger seat, took a deep breath, and started walking toward the house. As I stepped inside, the noise hit me like a wall. For a split second, no one noticed me. I stood there, taking it all in, until someone glanced over, and then another. Slowly, the chatter started to die down, and heads turned in my direction. My mom, Grace, was the first to approach me, her voice higher than usual. "Oh, you made it! What a surprise!" Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, and she didn't hug me. Just a quick pat on the arm before she stepped back. It was awkward, like she was trying to figure out what to do with me now that I was standing there, uninvited. "Yeah, I thought I'd stop by," I said, smiling, holding up the box of cookies. "Brought these for everyone." She took the box and murmured something about putting them on the dining table before quickly disappearing into the kitchen. I could feel the weight of everyone's stares as I stood there, trying to look like I belonged. Some people gave me polite nods. Others avoided eye contact altogether. My brother Ryan was nowhere to be seen, but Emily was across the room, deep in conversation with an aunt. She glanced at me once, her expression unreadable, before turning back to her group. I made my way toward the dining area, where a table was overflowing with food. My box of cookies looked laughably out of place next to all of it. I set them down anyway, and stood there for a moment, trying to figure out my next move. As I turned to leave the dining area, I overheard two aunts whispering near the hallway. "Did they not invite her on purpose?" one of them asked. The other shushed her quickly, but I'd already heard enough. My chest tightened, and I had to fight the urge to turn around and confront them. Instead, I pulled out my phone and pretended to check messages as I made my way toward the living room. A few younger cousins spotted me and came over to say hi. They asked about my freelance work, told me they'd seen some of my designs online, and even complimented the cookies. For a moment, it felt like maybe this wasn't going to be so bad. But then Ryan finally showed up. He saw me and froze for a split second before plastering on a polite smile. "Oh, hey," he said. "Didn't know you were coming. Thought I'd surprise everyone," I replied, matching his tone. The atmosphere shifted again about an hour in. Emily clapped her hands loudly, grabbing everyone's attention. "Hey everyone, I have some exciting news to share," she announced, her face lighting up. The room quieted as she told everyone she was pregnant with her second child. Cheers erupted, people clapped, and my mom looked like she might burst with joy. It was a full-on celebration, complete with toasts and hugs. And me? I stood there, invisible again. I watched as everyone fawned over Emily, offering congratulations and jokes about baby names. No one even glanced in my direction. My mom, who'd been glued to Emily's side, didn't so much as acknowledge me. It was like I wasn't even in the room. That's when something inside me snapped. I wasn't angry, at least not in the traditional sense. I was just done. Done being overlooked, done being treated like I didn't matter. If they weren't going to include me, I'd force them to see me. So I did what any self-respecting, forgotten family member would do. I grabbed a glass from the drinks table, clinked it loudly with a fork, and cleared my throat. The sound was loud, and the whole room froze. Mimicking Emily's announcement style, I said with a smile, "Since we're all sharing big news today, I've got something to share too." Their faces turned toward me, but instead of curiosity or excitement, most of them looked like they were wondering what the hell I was about to pull. But I didn't care. I held up my left hand, making sure my engagement ring caught the light. "I got engaged 2 weeks ago," I said, my voice steady despite the fire burning in my chest. Although, I guess no one here would have known since I wasn't even invited. That part hit like a bomb. For a moment, no one said anything, and I could feel the weight of their stares. A few scattered claps eventually broke the silence, mostly from my younger cousins, who looked like they were genuinely happy for me. But the energy? It wasn't even in the same universe as the excitement Emily got for her big news. My mom's face tightened, and she forced out a thin smile that practically screamed damage control. "Oh, that's lovely," she said. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" I met her gaze and replied, "I didn't think you'd care." Ryan, who'd been standing near the kitchen doorway, stepped forward, his expression hard. "This isn't about you," he said sharply. "You always have to make everything about yourself. This wasn't the time for that," Emily hissed, her eyes darting around as though I'd embarrassed her in front of the neighbors. She continued, "You couldn't just let me have one moment," she said. And just like that, I realized they weren't mad about my announcement. They were mad that I dared to disrupt their picture-perfect narrative. It wasn't about my engagement or my absence at all. It was about control, about keeping me in my place. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. I refused to back down. I ignored Emily and replied to my brother, "Really? Because I don't remember getting an invite to this little party. But you all seem just fine without me." Emily looked down at her drink, avoiding eye contact, while my mom's polite mask started to crack. Before she could say anything, though, one of my cousins, Chloe, spoke up. "She has every right to be upset," Chloe said, her voice firm. "If you didn't invite her, what did you expect?" Her words hung in the air, and for the first time, it felt like someone else understood. It wasn't much, but it was enough to crack the carefully constructed facade my family had been holding together. Still, I knew when my point had been made. I wasn't about to stick around and let them spin this into another round of, "Look how dramatic she is." Ryan wasn't done. "You can't just show up and hijack the night like this," he said, his voice rising. I stood there for a moment, letting their accusations and excuses bounce off me. Then I grabbed my coat. "You know what?" I said, my voice steady. "I thought tonight might be a turning point for us, but I see now I was wrong. Keep your perfect little bubble. I'm done trying to fit into it." I grabbed my coat and walked out without waiting for a response, slamming the door behind me. and as I stepped out, it hit me. I'd finally done it. For the first time in years, I stood up for myself, unapologetically, and damn, it felt good. By the time I got to my car, my phone was buzzing. A message from Ryan popped up. "You're being selfish as usual." I stared at the screen, feeling equal parts hurt and furious. Before I could overthink it, I typed, "And you're being predictable as usual," and hit send. It wasn't much, but it felt like the first step toward reclaiming my voice. As I drove home, I couldn't shake the thought, what happens next? Ethan and I had been engaged for weeks, but the idea of planning a wedding with them in the picture felt impossible. Who would I invite? My mom? Ryan? Emily? Did they even deserve to be there? Maybe it was time to stop waiting for them to treat me like family and start building the kind of family I actually wanted. When I got home, Ethan was waiting. He didn't bombard me with questions or push me to talk right away. He just hugged me, the kind of hug that feels like someone saying, "You're safe now." We sat on the couch, and I told him everything I expected him to be mad. But instead, he just listened. "You needed to do that," he said after I finished. "You've been holding this in for too long." He was right. But the thing is, standing up for myself in the moment had been the easy part. What came after was harder. The silence from my family was weird. No texts, no calls, nothing. For days, I waited for someone, anyone, to reach out. But it was like I dropped off the face of the earth. At first, I thought they were giving me space to cool off. Maybe they realized they'd messed up and were figuring out how to apologize. But as the days turned into a week, it became clear that wasn't the case. They weren't waiting to reach out. They were waiting for me to come crawling back. That's the thing about my family. They've always operated under this unspoken rule that nothing is ever their fault. If you're upset, it's on you to fix it. And for as long as I can remember, I've played along. But this time, I wasn't going to do it. I was tired of being the only one putting in the effort. Instead, I decided to focus on the people who actually cared about me. Ethan suggested we throw a small engagement celebration with friends and a few family members who had reached out after the reunion. I hesitated. It felt weird to celebrate something so personal without my parents and siblings there. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized they didn't deserve to be part of it. Not if they couldn't even acknowledge my news. We planned a cozy little gathering in our backyard. Just a few close friends, some. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was perfect. Ethan's family came, along with a couple of my cousins, including Chloe, who had quietly supported me through the whole mess. They brought warm smiles, hugs, and genuine excitement. It was the first time in a long time that I felt celebrated for just being me. During the party, Chloe pulled me aside. She'd been at the reunion and had witnessed the whole thing. "I'm sorry for how everyone treated you," she said. "You didn't deserve that. And for what it's worth, I think what you said needed to be said. I'm grateful that someone gets it, even if it's just one person. So yeah, this is where I am right now. I know my parents aren't going to let this slide. That I didn't invite them to the party isn't something they'll take quietly. What will they do next? I have no idea. But if anything happens, I'll update. For now, I'm just enjoying the peace while it lasts." Final update. Hey guys, I came back with an update. Well, the engagement party was exactly what I needed. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely celebrated, surrounded by people who actually cared about me. It was small, it was simple, and it was full of love. Everything my family gatherings never seemed to be. But of course, peace with my family was never going to last. A couple of days after the party, I got a text from Ryan. It was short and to the point. "We need to talk." I stared at the message for a while, debating whether to respond. Part of me wanted to hear him out, but another part of me wasn't ready to reopen that wound. Eventually, I replied with, "What about?" His response came almost immediately. "You made a scene at the reunion. It wasn't fair to Mom or Emily." There it was. No acknowledgement of how they'd treated me, no apology for excluding me, just more deflection. I took a deep breath and typed out my reply. What wasn't fair was being excluded in the first place. If you want to talk, we can, but I'm not going to apologize for standing up for myself. He left me on read. Here's the rewritten version in past tense, casual, and bolder. A few hours later, my mom called. I picked up, already guessing what it was about. "So," she started, "why exactly weren't your father and I invited to your engagement party?" I almost laughed. "I didn't think you'd want to come," I said, throwing her line right back at her. "Don't you dare pull that!" she shot back. "We're your parents. Of course we should have been there. Do you know how embarrassing it is to hear about it from your cousin?" "Embarrassing? Like finding out about the reunion through Instagram?" I snapped. "You didn't invite me to that. So excuse me if I don't think you're dying to celebrate me." "That was different," she said. "We thought you were busy. But this was intentional." "You're right. It was intentional," I said. Because I invited the people who actually support me. There was a long silence. Then she said, "We've always supported you. You think because we don't agree with every little decision, we don't care? We deserved to be there." I rolled my eyes even though she couldn't see it. Support? You mean calling my career a hobby? Leaving me out of family plans? Acting like I'm some extra who doesn't matter unless it's convenient? You don't support me. You support the version of me that doesn't exist. If you keep pushing us away, don't expect us to be there for you, she said after a pause. Maybe if you'd been there in the first place, we wouldn't be having this conversation, I replied. There wasn't much else to say after that. She muttered something about seeing how things were, and I hung up. Within a day of the call with my mom, the group chat, one I'd been conveniently left out of during the reunion planning, started buzzing again. This time, it wasn't just about family updates or random memes. It was about me. Apparently, Ryan and Emily had taken it upon themselves to frame the reunion drama as my fault. Messages like, "She turned the whole thing into a circus," and "It's always about her," started flying around. Chloe, who'd been quietly supportive of me since the party, sent me screenshots. I shouldn't have been surprised, but it still hurt seeing the words written out so plainly. "She's making this harder than it needs to be," Emily had written. Ryan followed up with, "She just wants attention." Typical. These were the same people who didn't think I deserved an invitation, who didn't even bother to ask how I felt about being excluded. And now I was the one making things difficult? Ethan noticed me pacing the living room, phone in hand, and asked what was going on. I showed him the messages. "Wow," he said. "They're really digging in." "Yep, and they're not even trying to hide it." He asked, "What do you want to do about it?" I was sick of letting them rewrite the narrative to make me the villain. "I'm going to call them out," I said. "If they want to talk about me like this, they can say it to my face. Or, I guess, to the group chat." I opened the group chat and scrolled through the endless messages about me. This is what I typed. "Interesting how I'm the one being blamed for causing problems when I wasn't even invited to the reunion. But sure, let's pretend I'm the issue here. Maybe instead of talking about me behind my back, you could have just included me in the first place." Before hitting send, I attached Chloe's screenshots just to make sure everyone saw the receipts. Then, with zero hesitation, I sent it and waited. It didn't take long for the chat to explode. Ryan was the first to respond, naturally. "This isn't how families solve problems," he wrote, as if he hadn't been trashing me 5 minutes earlier. Then came Emily. "What did you think sharing those screenshots would do? You're just making everything worse." I replied, "Oh, I don't know, Emily. Maybe I thought it would expose the hypocrisy of you all playing victim after cutting me out. Funny how that works, huh?" Ryan started typing again. Probably another lecture about family loyalty, but I didn't stick around to read it. Instead, I opened my mom's contact, sent her a final message that simply read, "I hope this helps you understand why I'm done," and then blocked her. I went down the list. Ryan, Emily, even the group chat itself. One by one, I hit block, watching the connections disappear. When I was done, I tossed my phone onto the couch and let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Feel better?" Ethan asked, leaning against the doorway. "Honestly? Yeah," I said, sinking into the cushions. "They'll probably find another way to spin this, but at least I don't have to deal with it directly anymore." He walked over, sitting next to me. "You stood up for yourself. That's what matters. Let them deal with their own mess now." For the first time in days, I felt a little lighter. My family wasn't going to change overnight. Maybe not ever. But I wasn't going to keep shrinking myself to fit their mold. If standing up for myself meant losing some connections, so be it. At least now, I could breathe. For now, Ethan and I are starting to talk about planning our wedding. We've been engaged for months now, but I keep avoiding the topic. Thinking about the details, especially the idea of involving my family, feels overwhelming. But now, after everything that's happened, I realize that I don't have to involve them. This day is ours, and we can plan it however we want, free from all the judgment and drama. We are planning to keep it small. Just a few close friends, Ethan's family, and the handful of cousins who've supported me through everything. No big venue, no elaborate guest list, just a simple ceremony in the backyard of a friend's house, surrounded by people who genuinely care about us. It's not what I imagined as a kid, but it feels right. It feels real. As for my family, I decide not to invite them again. It's not an easy decision, but it's necessary. They've made it clear, time and time again, how little they value me. So why should I give them a front row seat to one of the most important days of my life? I'm not rewarding their behavior with access to my happiness. Of course, word is already starting to get around. My mom, predictably, finds out through a cousin and calls me in a panic. "So, you're not inviting us as you did before?" she asks, like she can't believe it. "Yes, I'm not," I say simply. "Why?" she demands. We're your family. Because this day is about celebrating the people who've been there for me, I reply. And right now, that's not you. She tries arguing, tries guilt-tripping me into changing my mind, but I hold firm. This isn't about punishing you, I tell her. It's about protecting myself. I need to do what's best for me. She doesn't take it well. She calls me ungrateful, accuses me of tearing the family apart, and claims I'm turning my back on the people who love me. But for once, I don't let her words stick. I'm not letting her rewrite the narrative again. It's strange, thinking about a wedding without the people who raised me. I won't lie and say it doesn't hurt sometimes. But when I picture the day in my head, I feel more peace than sadness. I see myself standing with Ethan, surrounded by love and support, and I realize that's what family is supposed to feel like. It's not about obligation or blood. It's about who shows up for you when it matters. The more distance I put between myself and my parents, Ryan and Emily, the less their opinions seem to matter. My mom's guilt trips don't have the same sting anymore. Ryan's sarcastic jabs feel hollow. And Emily's passive-aggressive social media posts? I don't even bother looking at them. I've got better things to do with my time. That's not to say it's easy. There are moments when I think about the good times we shared before everything got so complicated. I miss those fleeting versions of my family, the ones who made me laugh and made me feel like I belonged. But I've come to realize those moments don't define who they are now. The way they treat me today is what matters. And until they're willing to change, I can't keep pretending everything is fine. For now, I'm focusing on the future, on planning a wedding that feels right for us, and building a life free from their negativity. If they come around someday, maybe we can try again. But until then, I'm choosing to protect my peace, even if it means letting go. So here I am, choosing myself. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. Because at the end of the day, I've learned one thing. You don't have to settle for less than you deserve, even if it means walking away from the people you thought would always be there.